All right. That basketball story, that's a good one if you have time later today. I didn't hurt Wally, but I hurt one of his friends. Hopefully who's not sitting here. Very likely could be, but it is great to be here. My name is, again, Caleb, and I just want to share with you this morning what I feel God has laid on my heart, and it's going to be intertwined. You're going to hear some things about my personal life. You're going to hear some things about Aim Right and what God is doing and how God is actively working and moving in the downtown Phoenix area. What's up, Carly? How's it going? So, former intern Carly sitting up here front and center. So, but it is great to be here, and so as I share with you this morning, I just want to kind of paint that picture. I want to paint that picture of what God is doing. But I am in town. Was in town for the annual golf scramble yesterday. Who played in the golf scramble yesterday? Anybody? The golf outing? I've got pictures of you that I got to show you later. So we got you in full swing, like slide by slide. But thank you guys for coming out and playing yesterday. I really appreciate that. And for those that are in here that help sponsor holes, thank you. Thank you for your generous donation and gift to that event yesterday. It was a great day. Beautiful weather for golf, great food, and just a great time to connect with everybody and be out there playing some golf. So, but Aim Right. Aim Right is located in downtown Phoenix. Anybody ever been to Phoenix? I know we have a few people that have lived here. Wow. It's a great place to be in the wintertime. If you've been there in the summertime, you know that there's some challenges that come with the weather and all that fun stuff. We were doing vacation Bible school this summer. It was about 115 degrees with about 60 kids and in a sanctuary with no air conditioning. I know, you look at me like crazy, but we stink, the kids stink, we all stink together because we're sweating like crazy, and it's a blast. It's a lot of fun. This summer, we had a group from South Carolina that came and worked with us, and on the second night of Vacation Bible School, we had this young man who had never come to any of our programs before. He had never come to anything involved with Aim Right. And on the second night, he looks at one of the leaders and he says, "Why do you guys love us so much? Why do you guys love us so much?" It was on the second night that he was there that God's love and the presence of God was so contagious that he understood that he was being loved. He understood that he was being loved, but he didn't know why. He didn't know why somebody that had came from South Carolina to spend a week in the desert would love him so much. And it was throughout that week that about 60 young people got to experience and got to hear about God's love and why we love and we care about them so much. And so that is what Aim Right is about. Aim Right is about reaching young people, sharing the gospel, and helping them find direction in life. That's our tagline, Aim Right Ministries, helping youth find direction in life. And it's been an honor to be a part of that for the last 10 years. I can relate with you young ladies that are getting ready to go on a 10-month journey. It's going to be a journey. It's going to be an exciting one. 10 years ago, we were preparing for something that we thought was going to last for a year or two. We thought we'd be in Phoenix for a year or two and move back to Plain City and start our family and be moving along with life. But here we are 10 years later, 2 kids later, running the organization, running Aim Right Ministries, and we started a house church about a month and a half ago, and we're on this journey that we don't know what's happening, but we know that God is in control. We know that He's got the plan, and we're just following, listening to His voice, and finding that direction through Him. And so this morning, as I continue to share, I want you to think about this concept, or not this concept, but the idea of never giving up. Never giving up. We just got done singing about God's goodness and how He's the King of our heart and how He cares so much about us. I love that song. And on some of my worst days, I will put that song on repeat, and I will just let that just echo in my mind. God is good. He's so good. He cares so much about us. And so, but in those moments when we feel like giving up, what do we do? What do we do in those moments? Do we pull out the white flag and say, God, I'm giving up? Maybe it's in our homework. This looks like the section down here that deals with homework. Do you guys have a lot of homework? Yes. Parents, I heard some parents. So, man, you guys get homework and just starting school the past couple of months, like there's probably nights you come home and that's the last thing you want to do, right, is homework. Parents, that's the last thing you want to help them with is homework, right? No? Amen? Yeah, somebody, okay? But, man, if you just keep working through that and keep pressing through that, you're going to accomplish that and you're going to hand it in to the teacher the next day, and the teacher's going to love you because you're the one and only student that handed in your homework. I don't guess that you guys do that, but I know kids that they don't hand in their homework, and their teachers, they're not their best friends. But it's this idea of never giving up. In Hebrews chapter 12, the first couple verses there, we read, it says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. Look to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured from sinners such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted. In your struggle against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your blood. Now, over the past couple of years, and probably over the past 10 years of serving and reaching the communities that we're working with in downtown Phoenix, I can't, typically you would say I can't, but I can't count on two hands how many times I've had to go back to that section of Scripture. I can't count on two hands how many times I've had to go back to that section of Scripture. Maybe because I've been discouraged. Maybe because I felt defeated. And maybe because I felt like there's no end in sight to seeing lives transformed. You see, when you're working with inner city youth, and when you're working with so many years of pain and so many years of frustration and so many years of literally no hope for the future, it becomes challenging. When you begin to dig into the life of a young person who's been ignored by their parents, who have been told by their parents that they're never going to amount to anything, who have been told by their parents that they're a complete failure, that they want nothing to do with them, it begins to add scars and it begins to add damage to a young person's life. And when you enter into relationship with that young person, you begin to have to peel away that pain. You begin to have to peel away that frustration, that anger that has been held up inside for such a long time. And there's times over the past number of years that we've sat down with many young people and we said, God, could you just work a miracle? God, could you just do something in front of our eyes that we would know that you're still working, that we would know that you're still moving, that we would know that you're still here? I don't know if you guys can relate with me on that, but I know there's times where I've questioned, God, are you here? God, where are you? We read about you, we sing about you, but there's just times where we don't always feel, and I realize it's not all about feelings, but we don't always feel that God is working. But this morning, as I said, never giving up. I want to give you guys some hope, and my prayer is that we walk out those doors here in a few minutes encouraged that God is actively working. If you came in here discouraged, I want you to walk out encouraged. If you came in here frustrated, I want you to walk out with a happy smile on your face. If you came in here thinking that this was the last Sunday that you're going to give God a chance to work in your life, then I want you to walk out that door back there knowing that God is still working. So through 3 stories I want to share with you this morning, I was not given a time frame So Wally said lunch is at 12:30, so we're going to be here for a little bit. Just flash a red light or cut my mic off when we need to stop up here. But I want to share 3 stories of how God has been working. And these are real-time, real-life stories that have happened in the life of me and my family and that have happened in the life of Amorite and the ministry over the last 2 years. And it's just stories of not giving up. And I hope that these are encouragement to you. About 8 years ago, my amazing wife, Stephanie, who's not with me today, she is in the mountains of Arizona camping with our 2 kids while I'm here in Ohio. So pray for her and send a prayer her way because it hasn't been the easiest weekend camping in the mountains. She is with friends. She is with other people. She's not on her own. So if she did that, she'd be like Superwoman. And she is Superwoman. So that's why I married her. But 8 years ago, my wife, Stephanie, she began to disciple 2 young ladies. 2 young ladies that they were like 2 peas in a pod. They could finish each other's sentences. They knew what each other was thinking. But these 2 young ladies reached out to my wife, and they said, would you begin studying God's word? Would you begin helping us make sense of this right here? Could you help us walk through and understand the meaning? And those 2 young ladies were Diana Valenzuela and Ariana Mendoza. I tell you what, 2 of the greatest young ladies that you'll ever meet. Currently, Diana is in Chicago with her family and living in the Chicago area, but she is one of the most opinionated, loudmouthed young ladies that you will ever meet. And that's what I love about her, because you know what she's thinking, you know what she stands up for, you know what she believes in, but there's a softer side of her. She's compassionate. She's caring. Many times over the past number of years, she'd come up to me and she'd say, Caleb, this is what I want to do. What you're doing right here, this is what I want to do. I want to give back to my neighborhood. I want to reach young people with the gospel. I want to reach young people and give hope in their lives. Ariana, on the other hand, she wasn't your typical pretty girl. She didn't like makeup and doing her nails and doing her hair. She had a rougher side to her, and she as well was opinionated. She as well let you know what she stood up for and what she believed in, and that's why I feel they work so well together. And her softer side was standing up for the little guy, standing up for the underdog, and not letting anybody trample on the underdog. But this was a journey that my wife began with these young ladies 8 years ago. And it was a journey of many ups and downs, of times where the girls wouldn't show up and times where Stephanie was frustrated because she didn't feel like she was getting through to them. She didn't feel like the effort that she was putting in, there was anything coming out. It was probably about 5 years ago that Ariana and Diana, they shared together the responsibility of leading a Bible study. They came to Stephanie and they said, hey, we've been struggling with smoking pot, we've been struggling with all these things, and we want to share with our peers how God has walked us through that, how God has taken that struggle away, and we want to share with them that. And so about 5 years ago, up in the balcony of the church, we gathered all the youth, and Ariana and Diana shared in leading them in Bible study. Shortly after that, Ariana began to go down a path that was the exact opposite. She had experienced the freedom, she had experienced the transformation, but she began to go down this path of using harder and more harder drugs. She went down this path of saying, you know what, I'm going to forget school. I'm going to forget trying to get my life together. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to do the drugs. I'm going to do the drinking. I'm going to do the party. And that began this journey in her life that took her to a place she never dreamt possible. Diana is over here on the other side. She's doing well for herself, made a few choices that weren't the best, but she's doing okay. She's moving forward. She's learning from her mistakes. And at that point, they kind of separate ways. They kind of go two direct opposite paths. And over the course of 2 to 3 years, Adiana began, again, using drugs, and she began living on the streets. Her mom and her were bashing heads. Her mom and her were not getting together. And it began, she didn't know where else to turn. So she went to the streets. She went to the streets, and she would literally live on the streets 3 to 4 days. She'd go home, she'd shower, she'd get some clean clothes, she'd go back to the streets 3, 4 days. And this was a cycle that took place for almost 2 years, in and out. Every once in a while, she'd show up, she'd reach out, but very rarely did we hear from her. And this was when that began to become very frustrating for my wife, because my wife had put all this energy and effort into sharing and trying to disciple Adiana that it felt like everything was wasted. But the thing we didn't stop doing in that time, and the thing that we never stopped doing in that moment, was praying and interceding on Adiana's behalf. We never stopped praying, and we never stopped thinking about her and trying to figure out ways that we could reach her, trying to figure out ways that we could encourage and strengthen her and come get her to step out of that lifestyle. And it was in about January of 2017 that we finally sat down, and then Stephanie and I looked at each other and we said, we have to do something. We have to do something. Something's got to change. We have to step in and see something happen in the life of Adiana. And so in January of 2017, we reach out and we say, hey, Adiana, we want to meet with you. We want to grab some dinner. We want to see what are some resources that we have that we can help you begin to get away from this lifestyle, to shift the course of your life into a journey that reaches towards Christ. So we got babysitters. We got babysitters on a weeknight. We said, hey, we're going to be gone for a couple hours. We dropped the kids off, and we had it planned, and we said, hey, Adiana, we're 20 minutes away. We're 20 minutes away. We're going to be there. We're going to pick you up. We're going to go to dinner. And she agreed, and we were excited. It's kind of like, almost like Christmas morning, right? You wake up on Christmas morning, you know there's going to be presents under the tree, and we get there, and we knock on the door, and there's no answer. And we knock on the door again, and there's no answer. And eventually, Adiana's mom comes out, and she's a short little Hispanic lady with fire engine red hair, and just like her daughter, she's loud-mouthed and opinionated and stands up for the little guy, but she is one of the most amazing ladies we've ever met. She comes out, and she says, Adiana was here 20 minutes ago, but she left. And I looked at my wife, and I said, yep. I mean, we could have banked on that happen. Wouldn't have been the first time. And in that moment, we looked at each other and said, well, we could drive around town. We could search all the spots that we know that she goes to. We could do that thing. And in that moment, we said, no, we're going to spend some time with Amalia, with her mother. And we sat and we prayed with her mom, and we talked to her mom and just encouraged her and said, hey, God is in control. It's not what we're doing, it's not what we can do and all, but it's what God can and will do. God is in control, and that's what we have to believe in. It was about 2 or 3 weeks later, I'm sitting in my office, and I get a phone call from Stephanie, and she's flustered and frustrated on the other end of the line. And I said, what's wrong? And she said, hey, Amalia just called. Adiana's sitting at the end of 5th Street. It's a dead-end street right in behind a McDonald's. She's sitting at the end of the street, passed out on a couch, won't respond, won't talk, nothing is happening. So I quick jump up and drive around the corner to this dead-end street, and as I'm driving in, I see it's at the end of the freeway. So there's this huge concrete wall, and there's a little, what looks to be like a homeless camp, and there's couches, and I see Adiana laying on the couch covered in a sleeping bag. And I approach quietly, I approach gently, and I reassure her. I say, hey, Adiana, this is Caleb. I'm here for you. How can I help you? What do you need? We're here. We love you. And we just kept reassuring her, we're here for you. We love you. We care about you. And it took a good 15, 20 minutes to get any kind of response. And every time her mother would walk closer and her loud and boisterous voice would echo against that street. And they began bickering back and forth, and the words, "I hate you," and "I don't want your help," and all these frustrations that were stirring up inside of Ariana to get her mother to leave and leave her there. Stephanie eventually shows up, and we just, again, we approach quietly and gently and get down on our knees beside the couch and trying to just assess the situation. And we say, "Ariana, what do you want? Do you want help? Do you want us to do anything?" And I can still hear her voice echoing as, "I don't want any help. Just leave me alone. Just leave me alone." We drove up to McDonald's. We got our food, went back, dropped the food by the couch, and pulled away. Probably one of the hardest things that we've had to do. Driving down that street, not knowing what the outcome of that situation was going to be. We go home, we continue to pray, we continue to believe that God is doing something greater than we can ever imagine, bigger than we can ever imagine. And about 3 weeks to 4 weeks after that, it was on a Sunday night. It was after one of the biggest fundraisers that Aimrite does throughout the year. We were ready to kind of escape for 2 to 3 days and just decompress and relax. And on a Sunday night after that big event, my wife gets a text message and says, "Hey, this is Ariana. I've hit rock bottom. I'm ready for help." And I look at Stephanie, I say, "Okay, here we go." We went on a Monday morning, and about 12 hours after we received that message, we're touring a Christian-based drug rehab facility. About 12 hours later, we're on our way to this place about an hour south of town, touring this drug rehab facility. And little did we know, Ariana had just come off a binge of drugs and is beginning to detox in our back seat of our car, just sitting there, just passed out, not responsive, not really, coherent. She's just sitting back there. But we're on this journey. We got to a place where she said, "I want help." She said, "I've hit rock bottom." And exactly 1 week from the time that we toured the facility, Ariana was checked in and was on this journey to restoration. She was on this journey to transformation. The rehab facility the Monday before told us, they said, "Hey, it's going to be a 2 to 3 week process." It's going to be a 2 to 3 week process. And I looked at Stephanie, I said, "We don't have 2 weeks. We don't have 3 weeks. We barely have a week. We've got to get this moving." And by a literal miracle, a week later, Ariana has checked in. 2 weeks later, she's completely surrendered. She's completely surrendered her life to Christ, baptized in the local church next to the rehab facility, and on fire for God. On fire. She's praying with people. She's going to churches and sharing her story. She's praying with pastors and praying for pastors. And at her 5-month mark, Ariana gets to come home and spend the weekend with her family. She gets to come home and spend the weekend with her family. She gets to go to church with us on a Sunday morning. And I had a picture, and I didn't get it here in time. But I have a picture of her 5-month weekend of being in rehab, of her worshiping along my wife, hands held high, worshiping the God that we love and that we serve. We thought we were on the uphill. We thought we were on this journey that was going to be something for years that we're going to always remember, and we still are on this journey. But on November 1st, I get a phone call from Teen Challenge in southern Arizona, and they said, hey, Adiana has decided to leave the program. Adiana has decided to leave the program, and somebody needs to come pick her up. And I said, here we go again. God, what are you doing? Her mom and I, and she had actually left the program and had disappeared for about 3 or 4 hours, and her mom and I drove down to Casa Grande, Arizona, and drove a city that we had no clue where the pockets were. We had no clue what was down there, but we drove the city for 3 to 4 hours looking for Adiana and never found her. I had an hour drive back to Phoenix and felt those same feelings I did when we left the dead-end street, and I'm saying, God, what are you doing? Thursday morning, that was on a Wednesday. On Thursday, Adiana's mom gets a call, says, hey, are you coming to pick me up? Her mom goes down, picks her up Thursday morning. She gets back home, is in touch with the rehab facility. The rehab facility says, hey, you've got 30 days. You've got 30 days to decide if this is truly what you want. If this is really what you want, you have 30 days and you can come back. But you've got to take a 30-day break. And then again, in my mind, I'm like, man, we don't have 30 days. Like, she's got to be totally engaged and totally a part of this program, or we're going to lose her again. On Friday, November 2nd, or for Friday, November 3rd, she tells her young brother, she says, hey, I'm going to walk down to the street to the Circle K. I'm going to grab a soda. I'll be right back. Well, Friday evening comes around and Adiana never shows up. Saturday comes around and Adiana never shows up. We try to search on Facebook. She's deleted her Facebook account. She doesn't have a phone with her. She left home without an ID, without any piece of information. On Sunday, still no Adiana. At this time, Stephanie's saying, hon, there's something is not right. Something is not right with this situation. I said, no. I said, Adiana's a fighter. She's a fighter. Wherever she's at, she's pushing through. She's getting to the other side. That following Wednesday, November 8th, I was sitting in my office, and there's a door on the other side of my office that goes up the stairway, and I see my wife coming down, and her body says it all. She walks into my office, and tears rolling down her face, she says, I told you something wasn't right. She had just gotten a call from Adiana's mom. Adiana was fighting for her life. Adiana was sitting in the hospital and had been sitting in the hospital since 6 o'clock Sunday morning, fighting for her life, unconscious, unable to speak, unable to respond. We rush and we get her mom, and we show up at the hospital, and we walk in the hospital, and we saw something that we never thought we'd see. We saw something that we never expected, and Adiana's laying on the bed, unresponsive, tubes coming out of her head, monitors hooked up to her. And when we walk in, they look at us and they say, you've got to be quiet. You can't talk. The only thing that they allowed her mom to hold her hand, because they said if we talk, if we cause too much stimulation in her brain, the pressures could rise to a point that could immediately kill her. And so over the next 24 to 48 hours, we try to put the pieces together of why is Adiana here? Why is she in this hospital? And we find out that Sunday morning, there was a man who drug her across the street and had a concrete-sized, or a softball-sized piece of concrete, and began beating her to unconsciousness. Thankfully, there was 2 security guards on duty that morning at the Circle K and at the CVS pharmacy. They ran to her rescue to save her from her attacker. But unfortunately, they were too late. Unfortunately, they didn't get there in time. And so from Wednesday and Thursday, there was no change. There was no improvement. But we never lost hope. We never lost hope that God was in control, that God knew exactly what he was doing. On Saturday, November 11th at 7:45 in the morning, I get a phone call that Ariana had lost the fight. She lost the fight at 4:45 that morning. And I looked at my wife and I said, I don't know how we can do this. A situation that felt at many times so hopeless. A situation that felt at many times like we wanted to give up and just let Ariana go on her way. And this is where we get to. We get to death. We get to the end of the story is like this. Not to mention, that was our anniversary, God. That was my wedding anniversary. How could you do this on a day like this? Stephanie and I were getting ready to celebrate 11 years of marriage. And we wake up to this? It took a couple days to kind of get our bearings straight and trying to figure everything out. But we knew that immediately we had to step in for the family. We had to step in and encourage and love on the mom, on her brothers. The crazy thing about this story is the mom, almost exactly 2 years prior to Ariana passing away, her oldest son was shot and killed. Within 2 weeks, 2 years, she had lost her 2 oldest children. About 3 weeks after Ariana's passing, we were standing in the sanctuary of AIM right there, welcoming in her friends, welcoming in those who loved and lived life with Ariana. And on that evening, on that Monday evening, we had about 120 people sitting in the sanctuary. And all 120 people heard not the former life of Ariana, but they heard the transformed life of Ariana. Because we were convinced, and we still are convinced, that her life had been given to God and that she was at a place where she was right with God and that she is up in heaven dancing and singing and praising the one who was chasing after her for so many years. For so many years, he never gave up on her. For so many years, he chased after her, and he finally got her home. That Thursday evening when Ariana was driving home from southern Arizona with her mom, she told her mom, she said, I can't do this anymore. She said, I can't fight anymore. I feel like I've given everything I have. Stephanie and I believe that God answered that prayer. Stephanie and I believe that God answered that request, not the way we wanted it, but that he got her home. And now her story continues to transform lives. Her story continues to bring hope to people that are facing situations that they think are impossible to get through. Her story continues to change lives in Phoenix. And it's been an amazing journey. It's been an amazing journey that we've wanted to give up and that we've wanted to stop. But looking back, I'm so thankful that we never stopped. I'm so thankful that we never gave up. The next time that you come to Phoenix and visit us, we have a nice little gazebo that was built earlier this year in honor of Ariana. There's 2 picnic tables sitting under there. I'd love to have you come and share a cup of coffee or something with me under that gazebo, and we can sit there and imagine and reminisce about the life of Ariana. But as I look back over that, like I said, I'm thankful that we never gave up. Earlier this year, we took 31 young people to summer camp. We took 31 young people to the southwestern corner of Colorado to spend a week in the mountains hearing and listening from God. This was our annual youth summer camp, our annual event that we put on for youth, and we thought it was just going to be another normal year. Leading up to this summer camp, there was opposition after opposition. Leading up to this summer camp, there was many times that I said, man, God, I don't think I can do this. There was many times where Stephanie and I would look, and some of our team, we would be sitting there and we'd say, what is God doing? It seemed like every time we turned a corner, there was something that was keeping us from moving forward. It seemed like every time we turned the corner, there was opposition. But we finally made it to camp. We made it to summer camp, and we show up on a Sunday night, and typically it's raining. Typically it's pouring rain, and we get there, and I say, man, this is fantastic. It's not raining. There's no mud. It's a beautiful night. The guy that directs the camp and runs the camp comes out and he said, hey, just so you guys know, there's no electric and the sewer is backed up, so we're going to have to keep your stuff loaded on the vans for a little while. And I said, oh, great. What a way to start a week. What a way to start a week of something we've finally gotten here, a week that we know lives are going to be changed and people are going to hear from God, and we're going to start it this way. Maybe we should just turn around and drive back. But wouldn't you know, we get there on a Sunday night. Tuesday night, we're sitting in chapel, we're worshiping, we're hearing a message, and I felt God say that, Caleb, now is the time. Now is the time. So I'm sharing with our young people what it means to give your life to Christ. I'm sharing with them what it means to surrender and accept Christ into your life and live your life for Him. And as I'm giving that typical, in a few minutes, we're going to ask you to come forward and we want to pray with you if you want to accept Christ into your life. I'm right dead middle of explaining this. And off to my left-hand side, a young lady by the name of Rosa stands up. And she says, can I go? Can I go to the front? And me being the kind of organized and want to keep everything in order, I'm like, I said, hey, if you want to come to the front, I said, come to the front. We want to pray with you. If you want to accept Christ into your life, and all 31, actually all 30, stood up and came to the front. All 30 young people came to the front, and we didn't have enough leaders to cover prayer for 30 young people because we never need 30 leaders to pray for 30 young people at summer camp. But in that moment, all 30 people come up and they say, we want to give our lives to Christ. We want to give our lives to Christ. And in that moment, our leaders come and I'm like, just pray for 2 or 3 people, or, just do what we need to do to get through this time and help these young people follow through with what they want to do. And I looked back off to the right-hand side, and there's a young man by the name of Angel, and I could see he's just kind of sitting there with his head down, and everybody's up here praying and crying and praying and crying, and it's just going on. And I go back and I sit down with Angel, and I put my arm around him, and I say, Angel, what's wrong, man? What's God speaking to you in this moment? He said, I gave my life to Christ years ago. He said, but I haven't been committed to Christ. He's like, I still believe I have Jesus in my life, but I just haven't committed to following Him. And so in that moment, I sat there and I prayed with Angel, and I said, Angel, continue to commit. We're going to help you through this journey. And again, I look back to the weeks leading up to this summer camp and to the months leading up in the preparation of the summer camp, and the many times that I was ready to give up, that many of us were ready to give up. And God says, no, just keep giving me a little more. Just keep giving me a little more. And we gave God a little more, and we continue to push through, and we continue to press through. And wouldn't you know it, 31 young people at summer camp gave their life to Christ. That may not have happened had we thrown in the towel. That may not have happened had we given up. And as I close here, I just want to share with you one quick last story and a few verses, and we'll get out of here. But the last story is a story of this partnership that has begun with Aimright and the local elementary school. The local, should I say, public elementary school. Aimright is situated 500 feet from the local elementary school called Garfield Elementary. For years, it felt like they were here and we were here, and we were afraid to cross the street and they were afraid to cross the street, and nobody had ever connected. And I finally had said, you know what, God, something's got to happen. Something's got to change, because there's 600 to 800 young people on this campus, and we're the church. We need to be impacting them while they're at school. And so it began this journey, and we didn't know if it was going to be an easy one. We didn't know if it was going to be a hard one, but wouldn't you know, it's probably been one of the easiest things we've done in the last 10 years that I've been at Aimright. It's probably been one of the easiest partnerships to have fall into place since I've been there. But yet so many times in my mind, I'm like, this is not going to work. God, this can't happen. The enemy was trying to get at me and say, no, you don't want to do that. The public school is not going to let the church come in. The public school is not going to let you be a part of what they're doing in the classroom. The public school is not going to allow you to be on campus and interact with the students. But wouldn't you know, through a simple trip to Costco, any Costco fans in here? Yeah, just me? Okay, thanks, Verba. I know my mom's a Costco fan. But a simple trip to Costco and a van load of bagels, muffins, orange juice, and coffee, wouldn't you know that's all it took? Right, Carly? The simple act, you want to come? The simple act of sharing food and taking food opened up a door that we never thought possible. We started in May of 2017 with feeding the teachers breakfast on a Monday morning. We showed up into the teacher lounge, we set up, we served the teachers, and we served a meal to the teachers. At the end of May, we had an end of the school year barbecue for the teachers, and they actually came to Aimright, and we served them lunch at Aimright. And over the last year and a half, we've done more on the elementary school campus than we have in 10 years. And I stand in front of you not to say because of what I've done, not to say because of what our team's done, but to say because of God's goodness and God's greatness, He has opened a door that allows the church to impact the public school, to impact the students, to impact the teachers. And in about 3 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, Aimright is actually going to be hosting and holding an on-campus club for 5th through 8th graders twice a week. The school has asked us, the church, to come in and hold a club. Now, it's a homework club. I know I said something about homework earlier, and I can't stand homework. But if that's is what it takes, that's what we're going to do. If that's what it takes to show the school that we're here to support them, that we're here to encourage them, that we're here to love them, then that's what we're going to do. And so on October 23rd, you can be in prayer for us, because we're going to launch our first homework club, and it's going to be a mixture of teachers and our team, but we're coming together with 10 students. And now these aren't like the 10 students that want to do homework. These are the 10 students that don't want to do homework. These are the 10 students that the teachers are going to refer to us, that we're going to have to coax, that we're going to have to probably bribe to show up every Tuesday and Thursday to homework club. Because they're the ones that aren't doing it. They're the ones that aren't handing it in. They're the ones that are looking at the teachers and laughing in their faces and saying, yeah, whatever. That's who's coming to homework club. And that's exciting to me, because I know that underneath all that anger, all that I got to look cool and act cool and I'm too good for this kind of stuff, is a young man or a young woman that is searching. And through our simple program of helping with homework, God's going to continue to open doors and show us and lead us and direct us. As I got here this morning, I opened up my Bible and I found this card, and it was it says Ascend Prayer Summit. It was a 2-day prayer summit that I went to last summer or last fall for youth pastors. And I opened it up and I thought this verse was fitting for this morning. It's Isaiah 43:18-19. It says, "Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now, do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness." The other version of my Bible says it like this. It says, "I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert." God says that he will make rivers in the desert. He will make what seems impossible possible. So no matter what situation you're going through today, no matter where you're at in life, maybe it's a young high school or a junior high student that's struggling with things at school. Maybe you're a businessman that's struggling with things within your business. Maybe it's your family. Maybe it's something personal. But I stand up here today to tell you that without God, it is impossible. But with God, it is possible. And we have seen God work and move in ways that we haven't seen for years. And that comes through continuing to reach out. That comes through continuing to press into what God wants to do. I believe that God is making a way for Amrite in the desert. We are in the desert. It has been dry. It has felt like God hasn't worked and God hasn't been moving, but we are seeing it in front of our eyes. I could tell you story after story of young people. I'm passionate about you guys. I'm passionate about this generation, and I believe that God is doing something amazing in your generations that's going to shake and he's going to upset the world, and he's going to allow you guys to bring truth to the lost. And so as young people sitting in here this morning, I just want to encourage you, never give up. Never give up. Maybe you're on this side and you're beginning into that adult stage of life. Never give up. It is hard. It is challenging. Being an adult is not always fun. You've got to pay bills and, eventually buy diapers and all that kind of crazy stuff. It does get hard. But trust in God. See, I can look back and I can see the times where I didn't see God move and I didn't see God work and I didn't hear God. It was because I wasn't trusting him. It's because I wasn't living wholly, sold out completely for him. And it's a daily thing. It's not just a Sunday and a Sunday night thing. It's not just a Wednesday night youth service. It's a daily thing. So as I close here this morning, I just want to ask that if I could pray for you and encourage you, never give up. The specific word that I felt God said for this morning was perseverance. Persevere through the challenging times. Persevere through those moments of opposition where it doesn't seem like there's light at the end of the tunnel. Would you stand with me and let me pray with you, and we'll hand it over to these guys back here.